The Great Hall of the Galactic Federation buzzed with the sounds of 100 different species. Admiral Zektar stood at the center of the room, his tall purple frame towering over the holographic display that showed ship after ship. Each vessel belonged to one of the Federation's mighty fleets. "Look at these beautiful machines," Zektar said, his forearms gesturing proudly at the display. "The Krillian battlecruiser can destroy a moon with one shot. The Vorthan dreadnought has shields that can stop a star's explosion." The other alien leaders nodded and made sounds of agreement. They had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Their technology was beyond anything most species could imagine. Their ships were works of art and war combined. "And then we have this," Zektar said, his voice changing. The display shifted to show Earth's small fleet. A few destroyers floated in space, looking tiny compared to the alien ships. Their gray hulls were simple and ugly. No elegant curves or glowing energy cores. Just metal boxes with engines attached. Counselor Villainous laughed, a sound like wind chimes in her throat. "Are we sure these humans actually reach space? These ships look like something my children would build with scrap metal." The laughter spread through the room. Earth had joined the Federation only 50 years ago. To these ancient species, 50 years was like yesterday. Most of them had been traveling between stars since before humans learned to make fire. Ambassador Chen Wei sat quietly in the human section of the hall. She was a small woman with graying hair, wearing a simple blue uniform. She did not laugh with the aliens. Instead, she took notes on a small device, recording every word they said. "Perhaps we should assign them to cargo duty," suggested Admiral Korath, his scaled head bobbing with amusement. "Their ships might be useful for moving supplies between planets. Or maybe they could help with cleaning," added another voice from the crowd. Chun continued writing. She had heard these jokes many times before. Every meeting was the same. The aliens would show off their powerful fleets, then mock Earth's small collection of ships. They thought humans were like children playing with toys. But Chun knew something they did not. The ships they were laughing at were not Earth's real fleet. They were just for show. The real Earth military was hidden far away, in places these aliens had never thought to look. On the main display, Admiral Zektar brought up a map of the galaxy. Different colors showed which species controlled which areas. Earth's territory was marked in white, a tiny dot compared to the vast regions owned by older civilizations. "The humans get this small system," Zektar said, pointing to Earth's area. "It should be more than enough for them. They can practice flying their little ships without getting in anyone's way." More laughter filled the room. Chun looked up from her notes and smiled politely. "Thank you for your kindness," she said in perfect galactic standard. "Earth is grateful for any territory you see fit to grant us." The alien leaders were pleased with her humble response. They liked when younger species knew their place. What they did not know was that Chun's words had a hidden meaning. While she spoke, her uniform sent out tiny signals that no alien scanner could detect. Far away, on hidden bases throughout the galaxy, humans received her messages. The signals were simple. Continue monitoring. Maintain stealth protocols. Operation Lighthouse remains dormant. Admiral Zektar moved to the next part of the meeting. "Now, let us discuss patrol schedules. The hegemony will take the eastern spiral arm. The Vorthan Empire will cover the galactic core." He assigned different areas to different species. All the important, wealthy systems went to the powerful fleets. Earth got assigned to the outer rim, empty space far from anything valuable. "The humans can watch the void beyond the galaxy," Zektar said, dismissively. "Nothing ever happens there anyway?" Chun nodded and made more notes. The aliens thought they were giving Earth the worst job possible. They did not realize they had just handed humans exactly what they wanted. After the meeting ended, Chun walked through the Federation capital's corridors, Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved past her, barely noticing the human ambassador. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others floated in bubbles of strange gas. A few looked almost human, but with different colored skin or extra eyes. They all shared one thing. They thought they were better than humans. Chun could see it in how they looked at her, or rather, how they did not look at her at all. To them, she was just another primitive species that would need 1,000 years to catch up to their level. Chun reached her small office and locked the door behind her. She activated several security devices that the aliens did not know about. Then she opened a hidden panel in her desk and pulled out a communication device that looked nothing like Federation technology. "Control. This is Diplomat 7, she said quietly into the device. Diplomat 7, this is Control. Report status. The Federation remains blind to our capabilities. They have assigned us to patrol the outer rim sectors as expected. Excellent. Any signs they suspect our real fleet strength?" Chun almost smiled. None whatsoever. They still believe the show fleet represents our total military capacity. Admiral Zektar suggested we might be useful for moving cargo between planets. A pause on the other end. Understood. Maintain current posture. How long until the next Federation military review? 6 months, standard time. Copy that. Continue monitoring their capabilities and weaknesses. Control out. Chun put the device away and returned to her normal duties. She had reports to write and meetings to attend, all part of her role as Earth's seemingly harmless ambassador. Outside her window, alien ships moved through space like graceful whales. Their hulls gleamed with advanced metals and energy fields. They were beautiful and terrible and powerful beyond measure, but Chun knew something those ship captains did not. In the dark spaces between stars, other ships were watching. Ships that did not gleam or glow. Ships built for war, not for show. Ships that waited patiently for the day when the galaxy would need Earth's true strength. That day would come sooner than anyone expected. The first attack came without warning on a mining colony called Theta 7. One day the miners were sending their usual reports about ore production. The next day, there was only silence. Admiral Jektar stood in the Federation's command center, staring at the empty space where Theta 7's signal should have been. "Communications failure?" he asked hopefully. Captain Malas, a squat alien with 6 eyes, shook her bulbous head. "No, sir. We sent a scout ship to investigate. They found debris. Lots of debris." The holographic display showed what remained of Theta 7. Chunks of metal and rock floated where a thriving colony had existed just days before. The destruction was complete. Not a single building remained intact. "Pirates?" suggested Commander Vorth, his tentacles writhing nervously. "What kind of pirates could do this?" Malas replied. The colony had planetary shields and a defense fleet. 3 cruisers and a dozen fighters. All gone. More reports began arriving over the following weeks. Mining stations, research outposts, even small military bases, all destroyed with the same brutal efficiency. The attacks followed a pattern, moving from the outer rim toward more populated systems. The Federation sent investigation teams to each destroyed site. What they found made no sense. The wreckage showed signs of weapons that did not match any known technology. Whatever had attacked these places used some kind of biological weapon that seemed to eat through metal and energy shields alike. Most disturbing of all were the few surviving security recordings. They showed massive, dark shapes moving through space. The ships, if they were ships, looked more like living creatures than constructed vessels. They had irregular, organic curves and what looked like teeth along their hulls. "The Void Swarm," whispered Elder Korvax during an emergency council session. The ancient Zephyrian was one of the oldest beings in the Federation. His species had been spacefaring for over 10,000 years. That is just a legend, Admiral Zektar protested. A story to frighten children. Korvax's eyes glowed with ancient memory. My people have records from before the Federation existed. Stories of creatures from beyond the galaxy's edge. Things that fed on civilizations and left nothing but emptiness behind. The room fell silent. No one wanted to believe that old myths were returning to threaten their peaceful galaxy, but the attacks continued. Entire star systems began going dark. Refugees flooded the inner worlds, bringing tales of horror. They spoke of ships that looked alive, of weapons that turned matter into something else, of creatures that hunted in the vacuum of space like predators in an ocean dot. The Federation mobilized its fleets. Massive battle groups moved to intercept the threat. The combined might of dozens of civilizations should have been enough to stop any enemy. It was not enough. The first major battle took place at the Helix Nebula. Admiral Zektar led a fleet of 200 ships against what sensors showed as 50 enemy vessels. The odds seemed overwhelming in the Federation's favor. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, only 12 Federation ships limped away from the battlefield. The rest were either destroyed or worse, converted into something that looked like a cross between technology and biology. Zektar's own flagship barely escaped. His after-action report made for grim reading. Enemy weapons appear to be some form of directed evolution beam. Our shields provide no protection. The more energy we put into our defenses, the faster their weapons adapt to overcome them. Panic began to spread through the galaxy. The mighty Federation fleets, undefeated for millennia, were being systematically destroyed by an enemy they did not understand. In desperation, the Federation Council activated Protocol 7, the ancient law that required all member species to contribute their full military strength in times of galactic emergency. Representatives from every world gathered for the emergency session. The hall that had once echoed with laughter now filled with fearful whispers. Species that had been enemies for centuries stood side by side, united by terror. The situation is grave, Elder Korvax announced to the assembled delegates. We face extinction unless we pool all our resources. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier must join the fight. One by one, the species reported their contributions. The Krillian Empire offered 300 battle cruisers. The Vorthan Confederacy pledged 500 dreadnoughts and their entire fighter corps. Even smaller civilizations promised everything they had. Then it was Earth's turn. Ambassador Chen Wei stood at the human podium, her small figure dwarfed by the towering aliens around her. She consulted her notes with the same calm manner she always showed. Earth pledges its full military support to the Federation, she said clearly. We offer 12 destroyers, 6 cruisers, and 2 supply ships. Silence filled the hall. After promises of hundreds of massive warships, Earth's contribution seemed pathetically small. Some delegates tried to hide their disappointment. Others did not bother. Perhaps, suggested Councilor Valinas gently, the humans could assist with refugee transport. Their ships, while limited, might be suitable for moving civilians away from the battle zones. Chun nodded politely. Earth would be honored to serve in whatever capacity the Federation deems appropriate. Admiral Zektar pulled up the strategic map. Red markers showed where the Void Swarm was advancing. Blue markers indicated Federation fleet positions. Most of the galaxy's military power was concentrated around the core worlds, preparing for a massive defensive battle. The humans can take this sector, Zektar said, highlighting an area far from the main battle zones. It was a region of empty space on the galaxy's edge, exactly where Earth had been patrolling for the past months. There is nothing valuable there, he explained. But if any civilian ships escape the fighting, they might flee in that direction. The human ships can provide escort and guidance. It was a polite way of keeping Earth's weak fleet away from real combat. No one expected the humans to do anything more than rescue work. Chun accepted the assignment without complaint. Earth will guard the assigned sector. We will not let you down. As the meeting ended and delegates hurried away to prepare for war, Chun remained in her seat. She appeared to be reviewing her notes, but her uniform was once again sending invisible signals. The message that flashed across hidden networks throughout the galaxy was simple. Protocol 7 activated. Operation Lighthouse authorized. Release the Kraken. In deep space, ancient shipyards that had been hidden behind false asteroids and sensor ghosts began to stir. Massive construction bays that had been dark for decades suddenly blazed with activity. Ships that had been waiting in the void for 50 years powered up their engines and began moving toward predetermined coordinates. Earth had been assigned to guard empty space. What the Federation did not know was that this empty space contained the largest military fleet in galactic history. The humans were about to stop pretending to be weak. The Federation's Grand Fleet, assembled at the Centauri Junction, looked magnificent. Over 3,000 ships from 50 different species formed, battle lines that stretched across space for millions of kilometers. Their hulls gleamed with energy fields and advanced armor. Their weapons could crack planets and their shields could stop stars. Admiral Zektar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display with growing confidence. Surely this force can stop any threat, he said to his officers. But when the Void Swarm arrived, all that confidence died. The enemy ships did not look like ships at all. They were massive organic things that pulsed and writhed through space like living creatures. Some were kilometers long, covered in what looked like scales or chitin. Others resembled giant jellyfish with trailing tentacles that sparked with unknown energy. All ships, open fire! Zektar commanded. The Federation fleet unleashed everything it had. Energy beams that could melt asteroids struck the swarm vessels. Particle cannons designed to destroy moons fired at maximum power. Missiles with antimatter warheads exploded against the alien hulls. For a moment, it seemed to work. Several swarm ships reeled under the assault, their organic armor cracking and bleeding strange fluids into space. Then something terrible happened. The enemy ships began to change. Where the energy weapons had struck, new growths appeared on the alien hulls. The organic armor became thicker and harder. When the Federation fired again, their weapons did less damage. The third volley barely scratched the enemy ships. Impossible, breathed Captain Melos. They are adapting to our weapons in real time. The swarm counterattacked. Streams of what looked like living electricity jumped from ship to ship across the Federation formation. Where the bioenergy touched Federation vessels, their hulls began to change. Metal became something else, something that pulsed and moved on its own. Admiral Korvax watched in horror as his cruiser began growing organic patches along its sides. All ships retreat, he shouted. The fleet is compromised. But retreat was not possible. The swarm ships moved through space in ways that defied physics. They flowed like water, surrounding the Federation forces. When Federation ships tried to jump to hyperspace, tendrils of living energy followed them, dragging them back into normal space. The battle became a massacre. One by one, the mighty Federation ships fell silent. Some exploded in brilliant fireballs. Others simply stopped responding to communications as their crews were overcome by whatever the swarm had done to them. Within 6 hours, the greatest military force in galactic history was destroyed. Only a handful of ships escaped to carry word of the disaster. Admiral Zektar's flagship was among the survivors, but barely. Half his crew was dead, and his ship's systems were failing. As they limped away from the battlefield, his communications officer picked up emergency broadcasts from across the galaxy. Sir, we are receiving distress calls from the core worlds. The swarm has split into multiple fleets. They are attacking everything simultaneously. The strategic display showed red markers appearing throughout Federation space. The enemy was not following normal military tactics. Instead of conquering territory step by step, they were striking everywhere at once, spreading terror and confusion. How many ships do we have left? Zektar asked wearily. Across the entire Federation. Maybe 500 combat-capable vessels. Most are damaged. 500 ships against an enemy that had just destroyed 3,000. The math was simple and hopeless. Zektar activated the general emergency broadcast. His image and voice went out to every communications relay in the galaxy. "This is Admiral Zektar of the Federation Defense Force," he said, his voice heavy with despair. "I am sending this message to any vessels still capable of fighting. The main fleet has been destroyed. The swarm is advancing on all fronts. We need every ship, every weapon, every able being willing to stand against extinction. Please, converge on the Centauri Junction. The Federation cannot fall." The message repeated across all channels and all languages. It was a desperate plea from a broken military leader who had run out of options. For several hours, no one answered. The survivors of the Great Fleet drifted in space, waiting for reinforcements that would never come. Some captains talked of surrender. Others spoke of fleeing to distant galaxies where the swarm might never find them. Then something impossible appeared on their sensors. "Sir," the sensor operator said, his voice filled with disbelief. "I am detecting a massive gravimetric anomaly. Something is coming out of hyperspace. Friendly or hostile? Unknown. The signature is unlike anything in our databases. Space itself seemed to bend and twist. Reality rippled like water as something enormous forced its way from hyperspace into normal space. The gravimetric distortion was so powerful that it interfered with nearby star systems, causing solar flares on distant suns. When the distortion cleared, the surviving Federation officers stared in shock at what they saw. A ship. But calling it a ship was like calling a mountain a pebble. The vessel was over 15 kilometers long and nearly 3 kilometers wide. Its hull was dark gray metal scarred by countless battles. Unlike the elegant curves of Federation ships or the organic chaos of swarm vessels, this ship was all brutal angles and functional design. Massive gun turrets dotted its surface like metal mountains. Launch bays large enough to swallow Federation cruisers opened along its flanks. Energy readings showed power systems that dwarfed anything the Federation had ever built. But most shocking of all was the symbol painted on its hull. The blue and white flag of Earth. "This is Admiral Sarah Knox of the United Earth Navy," came a transmission. In perfect galactic standard. The voice was calm and professional, with no trace of fear or uncertainty. "We received your distress call, Admiral Zektar. Sorry for the delay. It took us some time to get here from the Outer Rim." Admiral Zektar could barely speak. That ship. Where did it come from?" "The U.S. Indomitable has been on patrol in our assigned sector," Admiral Knox replied. "Along with the rest of Third Fleet, we've been monitoring the situation and decided it was time to intervene." "Third Fleet?" Zektar managed to ask. "Just a moment, Admiral." More ships began appearing around the massive carrier. Not the small destroyers and cruisers that Earth had shown the Federation, but sleek predators built for war. They moved with deadly grace, taking formation around their flagship like wolves gathering around their pack leader. "Admiral Knox," Zektar said slowly, "how many ships do you have?" There was a pause. When Admiral Knox spoke again, there was a hint of something that might have been amusement in her voice. "How many do you need, Admiral Zektar?" Before he could answer, the swarm arrived. Dozens of bioships dropped out of hyperspace, drawn by the massive energy signatures of the human fleet. They moved toward the Earthships with the same flowing motion that had destroyed the Federation forces. "All ships," Admiral Knox's voice rang out across the communications channels. "This is Lighthouse Actual. We have multiple hostile contacts. Authorization code Phoenix. Weapons free. Show them what humans do to things that threaten our galaxy." The great carrier began launching fighters. But these were not the primitive craft the Federation expected. Sleek, deadly machines poured from the launch base in numbers that seemed impossible. Each fighter moved with inhuman precision, controlled by artificial intelligences that calculated attack vectors and defensive maneuvers faster than any organic mind could follow. Admiral Zektar watched in amazement. As the human fleet moved to engage the swarm, for 50 years, the galaxy had seen Earth as weak and primitive. They were about to learn how wrong they had been. The first wave of human fighters reached the swarm ships in perfect formation. Admiral Zektar expected to see the same tragic result as before, brave pilots dying uselessly against an unstoppable enemy. Instead, he witnessed something that changed everything he thought he knew about warfare. The human fighters did not fire energy weapons. They did not try to penetrate the swarm's adaptive bioarmor with lasers or particle beams. Instead, they launched simple metal projectiles, kinetic rounds accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic rails. The swarm ships tried to adapt, growing thicker armor where the projectiles struck. But you cannot evolve defenses against pure momentum. The metal slugs punched through organic hulls like bullets through paper, carrying explosive charges that detonated inside the alien vessels. "Impossible," whispered Captain Melos. "Kinetic weapons are primitive technology. No advanced civilization uses them anymore." But the humans were just getting started. As the swarm ships reeled from the kinetic bombardment, the human fighters launched their second wave of attacks. Missiles streaked through space, not the elegant smart weapons the Federation used, but crude-looking rockets with massive warheads. Admiral Knox's voice came over the communications channel. "All Federation ships, move to minimum safe distance. We are deploying nuclear weapons." Nuclear weapons. The galaxy had not seen such primitive, brutal weapons in thousands of years. Civilized species had moved beyond such crude tools when they developed clean energy weapons and molecular disruptors. The nuclear warheads detonated against the swarm ships in brilliant flashes of light and radiation. The bioships, which had adapted to resist energy weapons and particle beams, had no defense against the raw, dirty power of fusion explosions. Where the nuclear fire touched them, the organic hulls simply melted. The radiation that followed poisoned whatever biological systems remained. Ships that had seemed unstoppable moments before began dying in space, their hulls cracking and bleeding as their internal biology failed. "How did you know?" Admiral Zektar asked, his voice filled with amazement and horror. "Know what?" Admiral Knox replied calmly. "That nuclear weapons would work against them. Our scientists said the bioarmor could adapt to any energy attack." "It can adapt to advanced energy attacks," Knox corrected. "But nuclear weapons are not advanced. They are just very, very effective. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways." The battle continued, but it was no longer a massacre. The human fleet moved through the swarm formation like a knife through flesh. Their ships did not rely on elegant shields or sophisticated defenses. Instead, they used thick armor plating and redundant systems that could take damage and keep fighting. When swarm bioenergy weapons struck the human ships, the effects were minimal. The organic corruption that had turned Federation vessels into alien hybrids could not take hold on human hulls that were designed with such attacks in mind. "Have you fought these creatures before?" Zektar asked. "Many times," Admiral Knox replied. The galaxy is bigger than the Federation realizes. While you enjoyed peace, we have been dealing with threats from dark space. The Void Swarm is just one of many enemies that lurk beyond the rim. The human tactical display showed information that made Zektar's head spin. Battle plans that accounted for dozens of different alien attack patterns. Weapon loadouts specifically designed to counter bio-adaptive armor. Ship designs that prioritized survival over elegance. How long have you been preparing for this? He asked. Since the day we joined the Federation, Admiral Knox said. We knew that a galaxy this big and this old would have enemies you have forgotten about. So we prepared. The largest human ship, the massive carrier called Indomitable, was a marvel of military engineering. It did not just carry fighters. It was a mobile fleet base that could repair damaged ships, manufacture ammunition, and coordinate battles across multiple star systems simultaneously. Its fighter craft were controlled by artificial intelligences that could process information and make decisions faster than any biological mind. Each AI was backed up in multiple locations, so destroying one fighter did not eliminate its electronic consciousness. But most importantly, the human weapons were designed around a simple principle. They used physics that could not be adapted to or evolved against. Kinetic energy, nuclear fusion, and electromagnetic pulse weapons that worked the same way regardless of what the target tried to do about them. As the battle reached its climax, Admiral Knox deployed her final surprise. The carrier's main weapon was not an energy beam or particle cannon. It was a mass driver that could accelerate projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. The projectiles themselves were not explosive. They were simply chunks of dense metal weighing several tons each. When they struck the largest swarm ships at relativistic speeds, the results were devastating. The kinetic energy released was equivalent to antimatter explosions, but with none of the exotic physics that bioarmor might adapt to. One by one, the swarm ships died. Their organic hulls cracked and burned in the vacuum of space. The bioenergy weapons that had seemed so terrifying fell silent as their host. Creatures perished. When the last enemy ship finally stopped moving, Admiral Knox opened a channel to all surviving Federation vessels. This is Admiral Knox to all Federation ships. The immediate threat has been neutralized. We are transmitting medical and technical assistance packages to any vessels requiring aid. Admiral Zektar stared at his tactical display in disbelief. In less than 4 hours, the humans had accomplished what the entire Federation had failed to do with 3,000 ships. They had not just defeated the Void Swarm, they had made it look easy. Admiral Knox, he said slowly, I need to ask you something. Go ahead. The ships you showed us before, the destroyers and cruisers that Earth contributed to Federation defense, were they decoys? Knox finished. Training ships mostly? We built them to look like what you expected human technology to be capable of. The real Earth fleet has been hidden in deep space for decades. How many ships do you really have? There was a long pause. When Admiral Knox spoke again, her voice carried a weight that made Zektar shiver. Admiral, we have been preparing for war since before your species developed spaceflight. We have shipyards in the void between galaxies. We have weapons testing facilities in pocket dimensions. We have been building and training and watching for threats that the Federation never imagined. Another pause. How many ships do we have? Enough. As if to prove her point, more human vessels began appearing on sensors. Ships that had been cloaked or hidden in the outer darkness now revealed themselves. They filled space around the battle site, hundreds of vessels of all sizes, from small destroyers to massive carriers like the Indomitable. Admiral Zektar realized that everything the Federation thought it knew about humanity was wrong. They were not the weak, primitive species that needed protection and guidance. They were the predators who had been quietly watching the galaxy, waiting for the moment when their strength would be needed. That moment had come, and the galaxy would never be the same. 3 months after the Battle of Centauri Junction, Ambassador Chen Wei stood before the reformed Galactic Council. But this time, she was not sitting in the small human section at the back of the hall. She stood at the center podium, where only the most powerful leaders were allowed to speak. The Great Hall looked different now. Many of the proud alien species that had once filled the seats were gone, their civilizations either destroyed by the Void Swarm or too damaged to maintain their old positions of power. Those who remained looked at Chun with very different eyes than they had months before. The threat assessment was more accurate than we had hoped, Chun said, consulting the same type of simple notes she had always carried. The Void Swarm was indeed just the beginning. Behind her, a massive holographic display showed the galaxy as it really was. Not the peaceful, civilized space the Federation had imagined, but a dangerous place filled with ancient threats that had been waiting in the dark. Our deep space monitoring stations have identified 17 separate hostile forces moving toward inhabited space. Chun continued. Some are biological, like the swarm we just defeated. Others appear to be artificial intelligences that achieved consciousness and turned against their creators millions of years ago. Still others are things we do not yet understand. Elder Korvax, one of the few original council members still alive, leaned forward in his seat. How long have you known about these threats? Since we first achieved faster than light travel, Chun replied calmly. Human space exploration was not driven by curiosity or trade opportunities. It was driven by the knowledge that space is a very dangerous place. She gestured to the display, which now showed human ships positioned throughout the galaxy. They were everywhere, in empty systems that the Federation had thought worthless. Around dead worlds that contained ancient ruins, in the void spaces between spiral arms where normal traffic never went. While the Federation celebrated peace, Earth was mapping threats. We found the remains of hundreds of extinct civilizations. We studied their technology, learned from their mistakes, and prepared for the enemies that had destroyed them. Admiral Zektar, who now served as Chen's military advisor rather than as an independent commander, stood up to address the council. The humans did not just build ships, he said, his voice filled with a mixture of respect and wonder. They built a comprehensive defense network. Hidden bases, automated weapon platforms, early warning systems, and most importantly, they built weapons specifically designed to counter each type of threat they discovered. The display shifted to show some of these preparations. Massive orbital fortresses disguised as asteroids. Weapon satellites that looked like space debris. Entire fleets hidden in the gravity wells of dead stars, waiting for orders that might never come. The nuclear weapons that saved us from the Void Swarm were not Earth's most advanced weapons, Zektar continued. They were among the simplest tools in their arsenal. They have weapons that can manipulate time itself, devices that can reach across space to strike targets in other dimensions, and machines that can turn a star into a weapon. Counselor Villainous, her 4 eyes wide with fear and awe, raised a trembling hand. Why? Why did you prepare for wars that might never happen? Why spend so much time and resources on weapons you hope never to use? Chun smiled, and for the first time since anyone had known her, the expression seemed completely genuine rather than diplomatic. Because that is what humans do, she said simply. We survived on a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned to prepare for disasters that might never come because the cost of being wrong was extinction. When we reached space and saw how many civilizations had died from threats they never saw coming, we decided we would not make the same mistake. The council chamber fell silent. These beings, who had ruled the galaxy for millennia, were beginning to understand that they had been living in a paradise protected by guardians they never knew existed. "What happens now?" asked Commander Vorth, his tentacles writhing nervously. Chun consulted her notes again. Earth formally requests permission to establish the Galactic Defense Coordination Authority. This organization would be responsible for monitoring threats from outside, inhabited space, and coordinating responses when such threats are detected. It was polite language that meant Earth was taking control of galactic defense, whether the Council agreed or not. Everyone in the room knew this, but the pretense of asking permission was maintained. Who would lead this organization? Elder Korvax asked. Admiral Sarah Knox has been selected as Supreme Commander of Galactic Defense, Chun replied. She will work with military leaders from all surviving civilizations to create integrated defense protocols. What she did not say, but everyone understood, was that Admiral Knox would also have the authority to make decisions about which civilizations were worth defending and which were not. The old Federation had been built on the idea that all species were equal partners. The new reality was that some species were more useful than others. Over the following months, the galaxy learned to adjust to its new situation. Human ships became a common sight in every star system. Human military advisors worked with alien fleets to upgrade their weapons and tactics. Human scientists shared carefully selected pieces of advanced technology with species that proved themselves trustworthy. But the most important change was psychological. The galaxy had learned that it was not the safe, civilized place they had believed it to be. Space was full of ancient dangers that could destroy entire civilizations without warning. Only constant vigilance and preparation could protect them. Children on 100 worlds now looked up at the night sky and saw human ships patrolling the darkness. They learned new stories about brave Earth warriors who fought monsters in the void so that others could sleep safely. The humans had become the protectors that the galaxy never knew it needed. Admiral Knox established her headquarters on a massive space station built in the empty space between galaxies. From there, she coordinated the defense of inhabited space against threats that most civilians would never know existed. Her fleets moved through dimensions and time itself to strike at enemies before they could reach populated worlds. The old Federation still existed, but it was different now. Instead of a collection of equal partners, it had become something more like a protected alliance. The strong species contributed ships and soldiers to the common defense. The weak species contributed resources and labor. And Earth provided the knowledge and weapons that kept everyone alive. Ambassador Chun returned to her small office, though it was no longer small. As Director of Interspecies Coordination, she now commanded a staff of thousands and had authority over matters that affected every living being in the galaxy. She still kept the same simple communication device hidden in her desk, though now she used it to coordinate activities across dozens of star systems instead of just reporting to her handlers. "Control, this is Diplomat 7, she said during one of her regular check-ins. "Diplomat 7, this is Control. Status report. The transition is proceeding smoothly. Most species have accepted the new defensive arrangements. Resistance has been minimal. Any signs that our true capabilities are becoming known?" Chun almost laughed. "Control, they think what they saw at Centauri was our true capabilities. They have no idea that the Third Fleet was just a small patrol group." A pause on the other end. "Understood. Continue monitoring the situation. How are the other threats developing?" "The Devourers will reach the Rim in approximately 18 months. The Machine Collective is moving toward the core worlds. The darkness continues to spread from the Galactic Center." "Copy that. Prepare for Phase 2 operations. Control out." Chun put the device away and returned to her work. There were reports to review, meetings to attend, and a galaxy to protect. The Federation thought the war was over, but Chun knew better. The war had not even begun yet. The Void Swarm had been just a test, a way for Earth to reveal some of its strength without showing too much. The real enemies were still coming, and when they arrived, the galaxy would learn what human military power really looked like. But for now, there was peace. Children could sleep safely in their beds, knowing that somewhere in the darkness, human ships stood watch against the night. And that was enough. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Never underestimate a species that has spent its entire existence preparing for the worst possible outcome. Because when the worst finally arrives, those species are the only ones ready to fight back. Earth had been ready. And now, Earth would make sure the galaxy was ready too.